Imagine you sell your house. You're feeling like a champion. And then, right when you're mentally spending your profit, capital gains tax shows up like, hey there, heard you had some proceeds. And if you've been online at all lately, you've probably seen the headlines, a new proposal that would completely eliminate capital gains taxes for home sellers. Sounds simple. Sounds amazing. Sounds like something that could instantly unlock the housing market nationwide. So let's do the grown-up version of the conversation because this is important. This is not yet a law. It's simply a bill that has been introduced and referred to committee. That's just the start of the process, not the finish line. But here's the baseline. Under current tax rules, when you sell your primary home, most people can exclude a large amount of profit from capital gains taxes, generally $250,000 if you're single and $500,000 if you're married filing jointly, assuming you meet the primary residence rules. That's why plenty of homeowners sell and never pay capital gains tax at all. But those numbers have not been updated in a very long time, and home prices have not been sitting quietly in the corner behaving themselves. One of the reasons that this has become such a big conversation is the argument that rising prices have pushed more homeowners up against those limits. One recent set of figures being cited says home values have climbed more than 260% since those exclusions were last adjusted, and that a meaningful share of homeowners already exceed the single filer limit, with projections that it could become the majority of homeowners by 2030. That's the "this is outdated" argument all in one sentence. Now, the new bill getting the most attention right now is called the Don't Tax the American Dream Act, introduced January 13th, 2026 by Representative Craig Goldman from Texas. The way it's being described in plain English is, if you've lived in the home for at least 2 years, you'd be exempt from capital gains tax when you sell it. At the time of reporting, it had no co-sponsors, which matters when we talk about how likely something is to move forward. And that leads to the first big reality check. A bill being introduced is not the same thing as a bill becoming law. Introducing a bill is like putting a treadmill in your house. It's a strong statement about your intentions. It's not proof you ran a mile. So why do people love this idea so much? Because taxes change behavior. If selling triggers a giant tax bill, some homeowners are just going to stay put. If you remove that penalty, more people may be willing to list their home, especially longtime owners with large gains who've been thinking, I would move, but I'm not going to do it and get punished for it. So reporters will tell you that this could loosen up the market by reducing what's called the lock-in effect. People staying in homes they might otherwise sell. More sellers listing means more inventory, and inventory is oxygen. When you don't have enough homes for sale, buyers fight harder, prices stay sticky, and everyone ends up exhausted. But now we have to talk about why this gets controversial fast. Because not every homeowner benefits equally. Many homeowners never come close to the current exclusion limits. For them, this changes nothing. The biggest benefit goes to households with the biggest gains, often long-time owners in high appreciation areas and higher price segments. That doesn't automatically make the policy wrong, but it does shape the criticism. Opponents will frame it as a large tax break that's concentrated among high-gain sellers, and they'll ask why that should be prioritized over other affordability tools. Then there's the Economist angle. What happens to the market? More inventory could ease price pressure, but it's not guaranteed to make prices drop because sellers keep more after-tax proceeds can also change pricing behavior. Some sellers may feel comfortable holding out for more. And here's the part people forget. A seller often becomes a buyer, so you can get more listings and more buyer demand in the system at the same time. So this is not a simple prices up or prices down story. It's a behavior changes story. And behavior changes play out differently depending on local inventory, rates, and demand. And then we get to the unsexy part, revenue. Eliminating a tax reduces government revenue. That's one reason big tax changes often get debated intensely or get reshaped into a more moderate version. Which brings me to another major proposal you should know about because it's been part of this conversation too. Now that's HR 1340, the More Homes on the Market Act. This one doesn't eliminate capital gains tax on home sales. It modernizes the thresholds. It doubles the exclusion amounts from $250 to $500 for single filers and from $500 to $1 million for married filers. and then indexes those amounts for inflation starting in taxable years after 2024. It applies to sales after the date it would be enacted. It also has significant co-sponsor support, dozens and dozens, which usually signals broader traction, even if it still has to move through the same process. So you have two different approaches floating around. One is to remove the cap entirely, and the other is to raise the cap and inflation adjust it so we don't have the same fight again in the future approach. Now let's talk process, because this is where the internet tends to skip straight to the ending. For any of these to become law, they have to survive committee. They have to get marked up, voted out, and then pass the full House. Then the Senate has to take it up, usually through the Senate Finance Committee. Then both chambers have to agree on the final language. Then the president has to sign it. That's why introduced is not a promise. It's simply a jumping off point. So here's the practical takeaway for homeowners. Don't make a financial plan based on a headline. If you're considering selling and you think your gains might be significant, talk to a tax professional early in the process. Understand your cost basis and documented improvements, and get clarity before you're under contract. Nothing ruins a closing week glow like learning you misread the tax part. Now, I want to know what you think. Should primary home sales be completely tax-free if you meet the residency rules? Or is it the smarter fix raising the exclusions and indexing them for inflation so that those thresholds keep up with reality? Tell me where you land, because this topic hits taxes, housing supply, and politics all at the same time, and that conversation always gets loud. If you like this, please like and subscribe and share with anybody thinking about buying or selling soon. See you in the next video.